dear colleagues, comparing to the extremely complex, deep, high abstraction level presentations we could enjoy today, I choose the totally different approach. So if Peter is the macrocosm, I will be the nanocosm, and not micro. I will start with a very lightsome, topic. So let me to entertain you. Well, here is a flower from a jungle of online news. Just one a flower and a lot of other flowers. It's a Buddhist funeral ceremony for a giant hog. At one point, so it's not a lightsome topic. So he is a pig king of China. His death was almost 3 years ago, and it was a quick-hand news. Within few days, different media entities could generate thousands of different contents about the death of the Peking. So it was a good moment to make deeper analysis on the nature of online news. Just about the story itself. So this giant pig was a very friendly animal. So thousands of couples from China are planned to perform a pilgrimage to this pig, and this very open-minded, open-hearted animal could communicate somehow with everybody, providing power and energy, and made them to reconsider things about their life. So the Pig King and his village became a famous touristic attraction, became a media object, and that's why the death of a Pig King was like a tragedy for a lot of Chinese. So we started to collect the elementary pieces of data about this story. A few of them are on this slide, but you can see that if we concentrate only the food part of the story, we can divide it on the timeline. The early life history food information and late life history food information, and it's very important to concentrate the details because every piece of food provided by this man Sheng Tuo can be important, as you will see later. So now. Now about the research itself. So what we made is a kind of super story. We try to get all the pieces of different media contents to be able to provide a story about the death and life of a Pig King, which contains all the available information about the story. And as you can see, it was 17 different content or source which we had to use to be able to generate this super story. Just one footnote for the champions of methodology. It was not the only news. We had a lot of other news, all about animals, from the 2006 big Texas penguin accident to a tearful story of a Russian crocodile, Fedya. That's just for Evgeny. So there were a lot of other news, and now I just illustrate with this one news the complexity of the phenomenological background of even one piece of online news. So we identified 83 isolated small information, elementary information object in this super story. And later we checked the authenticity of this information in online news content, and we found that 31 different types of mistakes was made in different articles about the story. But the most important part was that we could identify 22 different users' position, which could make a connection or a bridge of meaning as a connection with these 83 elementary information pieces. So 25 different special user interest with only one online news. Just few examples for them. So if a Yorkshire pig farmer from Word of Woodhouse read a news about the picking, he would be extremely interesting about its physical parameters and of course the food. And the Buddhist part of the story is absolutely irrelevant for him. All those who are interested in the media effects, how to generate a media object from an animal, they will be interested in all the media part of the story. It is very important to see the Buddhist ritual part. I didn't see any. I didn't know anything about different rules. So thousands of couples were there, and it was forbidden to touch the animal because the Buddhist rituals, and so on and so on. So you can see a lot of different potential user interest, and maybe this artist one is extremely interesting because this guy Chu Ge tried to buy the pig several times because its skin would have been big enough to reproduce a special Taoist picture onto it. So, and maybe you remember the deer antler liquor from the other side. I checked this one element of the story, and again I did not anything about the deer antler liquor before the story of the Peking, and I had to learn a lot about it. It's a very important entity in China, and you can see that it's a cobweb line to the webbing topic also. So that time I didn't know anything about our webbing conference now, but you can see the mysterious or serendipitous line of connections between different clusters and classes of things. So even a deer antler liquor as one piece of element can be very relevant for special classes of users. So now it's time to combine these outcomes with a model, and I think that the famous long-tail model of the internet economy is a very good pair of these outcomes. You all know this theory, which is talking about the mass market or the mass product. It's a head. This pink one, this is a head, and the great number of small products and small user groups or consumers. This is the long tail, but the interesting, this has a very interesting nature because the long tail is almost similar, sometimes bigger than the head. And it was a very fertile, very productive model because within weeks the scientific community started to use the long tail model for other classes of things. Even the media itself produces special long tail features. We can find the head of online media with head type, head nature, media institutions, objects, companies, surfaces or platforms, and we can find the long tail of online media with blogs and other user-generated content in it. And now it's time to come. So I didn't find a good long tail picture or model to fill it up with picking moment. So it's not just an illustration. It's just the same with chocolate, like the picking. So you can imagine that the head type parts of the picking story are about the death of this famous animal, the pilgrimage of Chinese lovers to him, and all these small particles of the article are on the long tail in the picking story. That is the nature of it. And now we are able to combine the outcomes and the long tail model. So what we could find is that it's very interesting to see the nature of or the phenomenological nature of even one online news. And we have a very good other theory from the anthropological theory of objects, and one of our colleagues used it in his presentation a day before. The affordance. Affordance represents all the possible links of organic relations between different objects and people, of course, and these objects can be mental objects or can be information units of a structured mental object or a scheme. And in a world of online news, this affordance represents all the possible links of meaningfulness between users and given pieces of content. And that's why now it's a very lovely sentence, and I read it up, that for different users, different content clusters are meaningful in a different way from the same online news. And it forms a new challenge for online newsmakers. And now we are running into the problems of algorithmic journalism, the question of robotics in journalism, or running from another point to Peter's homeotechnic or humanistic approach, because I think that this nature of online news and the long tail nature of users' interest produces a new challenge for the whole news ecosystem. And of course it can be an analogy for other clusters or other classes of content too. I believe in a humanistic challenge. So it is the human technology which can solve the control crisis of this content ecosystem, using the terminology of James Banniger. A previous control revolution, which was led by the information technology, could solve the previous control crisis. Now we are in another type of control crisis, and the solution can be a human technology instead of the information technology or artificial intelligence solution. So if we see on the other side Renaissance man instead of reproducible consumers, maybe we can find a better approach to the future world of online news, and it has a lot of direct messages to the well-being topic itself, without interpreting it. Thank you very much.